Colgan. Thank you for tuning in, day or night, anytime. So today we're going to be reviewing the book by Don Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements. And though this book came out, I think, in 1997, I only got around to reading it just last month, and I think it's worth your time and attention. So the Four Agreements, obviously, leads one to believe that there are four agreements. And what's the purpose of these agreements? Well, it's a native tradition based in Toltec terminology or philosophy or theology, if you will. And the Toltec, I haven't studied them a whole lot, but this book is a great introduction into what they believe, because they believe that we are here living a dream, essentially, and that through the agreements we make to the society and to ourselves that are part of that society, we either create heaven on earth or we create hell on earth. And so Don Ruiz, he tells us four agreements, and I'm going to briefly go over them and just help you kind of get a feel for this book, so that perhaps if it's something that's really interesting to you, you can pick it up and read it and study it, and then potentially, like myself, respect the four agreements and live by those four agreements as best as you're able to. And so the first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. Essentially, you can create white magic, what he calls white magic or black magic. And the black magic is destructive, evil, it tears things down. The white magic is uplifting, positive, and growth-filled. And with your words, you create. And so therefore, your words are the tool by which you use magic. And again, the idea is that you can create heaven on earth or hell on earth. And that is something that is determined by your words, by what you intend. Dog just chased some geese out of the way. Super happy dog. I guess that dog had a very special agreement as well. Be impeccable with his word. And I guess his agreement was to chase geese. Geese probably didn't feel the same. Anyways, sorry for that distraction. But again, be impeccable with your word simply means that you honor your word. If you promise something, you do that thing. You recognize the power of your thought. You know, we are either creating with our thought, or situations stimulate us to think thoughts. But at the end of the day, our thoughts are creative. So he's indicating to us that we should definitely be impeccable with our word. The second thing is, don't take anything personally. I know this can be difficult for some of us, and it's difficult for all of us at certain times. When we're vulnerable, when we feel exposed, and when we're insecure about something, we tend to have a sensation of being defensive, and therefore needing to protect ourselves. And his recommendation from the Toltec wisdom is to not take it personally. It's not about you. The other person has their own journey. They're living their own dream. And maybe that dream is a hellish dream, or maybe it's a heavenly dream, but for whatever reasons, when your dream and when both of your dreams come together, it creates situations in which you feel attacked or bad. And the suggestion there is just to not take things personally. And I know it's easier said than done, but the idea is to breathe in the experience. At least this is what I do, is to breathe in the experience, to still my mind so that I'm not caught in the ego matrix of needing to protect myself. And instead, if I can just disconnect from my natural narration, my narrative, then I can be present, and I can hopefully recognize that it's not about me, and I shouldn't take it personally. Or even if it is about me, I still shouldn't take it personally, because I'm just as valuable as the other person, regardless of how smart or how valuable it comes across, or the way it looks from a societal standpoint. The third agreement is very interesting, something I'm not that great at but getting better with, and that is don't make assumptions. So when we create assumptions, we are conforming or telling the universe how the universe should be, rather than being open-minded and curious about how the universe is. We are creating a false reality, and that's very limiting for ourselves and others. So it destroys relationships, destroys our own relationship with creation, because life is more beautiful than our assumptions. Life is more meaningful than our assumptions. And so he really kind of lays out a case as to why we shouldn't make assumptions. And the fourth one is do your best. And this is something that I find interesting because in the ancient Bhagavad Gita, about a 3,000-year-old book, very held in high esteem by those that practice Hinduism and scholars around the world that study comparative religions. And one of the things that's really important in this particular book is always doing your best, putting forth your best effort. And so I find it interesting that this native tradition of Toltec and this Hindu tradition share a common theme where it's really important for you to do your best. And I think that is something worth reflecting on and recognizing that if you give your best, there's nothing that you have to regret. There's nothing that you feel ashamed about or feel guilty about because you really gave your best. And so, sure, our best can change over time because we learn things, we have experiences, but at the end of the day, it's really important for us to give that particular best. So those are the 4 agreements, and there's a couple other interesting chapters he has in there about the angel of death and what the Toltecs think about this world in terms of it's a dream and how you can create hell or heaven. So I highly recommend this book if you have yet to read it and you're interested in developing a better relationship with yourself and with other people. Now, obviously, these are agreements that only you can make, but if you honor these agreements and live up to these agreements, you start to change the dynamics in all of your relationships because you're practicing something that is intentionally creating a world that you want. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Again, the book, 4 Agreements. I think you'll really enjoy it, by Don Miguel Ruiz. All right, namaste, God bless.